All right, guys, let's go over this reflections practice little half sheet of paper. And so before we start, what I want to do is for each one of these, why don't you go through, we'll just stop the video now, and why don't you go through and label each of these points A, B, and C. So like this can be A, this can be B, this can be C, and then plot them as well. So like A is 0, 4, so A, B is 2, -2, this is B, and then my C is -1, +3, so this is C, and then draw the triangle. Okay, so just like I did on this one, I want you to go ahead and do that on all of these. 4, so label it A, B, and C in that order, and then just plot it. Okay, I'm going to give you a minute to do that, and that'll save us some time as we go through it. All right, so as you've gone through and labeled each of your points and drawn your triangles, I want you to do one more thing. So the next thing that I want you to do is each of these, like this one's reflected over the line y = x, I want you to go ahead and go draw the line y = x. Okay, so go ahead and do that for all these. So like on this one, go ahead and draw y = 1, which would be this line here, and so on and so forth. Okay, so hopefully for each of these, you've labeled points A, B, and C. You've drawn the triangle and labeled those points on the graph A, B, and C, and then you've also drawn the line of reflection. So hopefully you've done that on all 4 of these. Okay, so now that we've done that, we can go and we can find the coordinates of my A prime, B prime, C prime of each of these graphs. And then after we find that, it'll be very simple just to plot it and redraw it. All right, so here we are reflecting over the line y = x. Okay, so this has a rule. So that sheet we did with all the rules of lines of reflection, you can look on that to see that the rule for reflecting something over the line y = x, our rule is AB goes to BA. Okay, so what that means is these numbers don't change. We're not adding a negative or taking away a negative. We just flip the order of them. So our x value becomes our y value becomes our x value. So here, if I just flip the order of this, that would be 4, 0. If I flip the order of this, that would be -2, 2. And if I flip the order of this, that'd be 3, -1. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw. If this is my A, this is my A prime. If this is my B, this is my B prime. And if this is my C, this is my C prime. Now all I have to do is plot these 3 points and connect the dots. So go ahead, plot these 3 points and connect the dots. All right, so when you've connected the dots, my triangle A prime, B prime, C prime should look like this in green. Hopefully yours looks a little bit nicer. Hopefully you can draw better lines than I can on paper. But this is what it should look like. And if you look at triangle ABC and triangle A prime, B prime, C prime, they should be congruent figures, just oriented differently. All right, so here's practice problem number 2. Now we're reflecting this over the line y = 1. Okay, if we go back to that rule sheet, we do not have a rule for y = 1. So we're going to have to use our brain, and we're going to have to think a little bit harder. Okay, so when we reflect it over this line, every point below this line is going to go above it. And every point above this line is going to go below it. And then every point that's on this line, which is right here and right here, stays right where it's at. Okay, so it's just like looking in a mirror. Now, the distance from that line is going to be the same on both sides. So this B, see we have like 1 unit away from the line of reflection. So our B prime is going to be 1 unit away from the line of reflection. So that's my B prime. Okay, my A prime is 1, 2 away from this line of reflection. So I'm going to keep going up 1, 2. So this would be my A prime. And then my C is 1, 2 above the line of reflection. So I'm going to go 1, 2 below it. And this is my C prime. So if I connect the dots, I would get this. So this is what my triangle A prime, B prime, C prime looks like. And please, 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 do label it A prime, B prime, C prime. Now, just by taking these coordinates from up here, this is -1, 3 is my A prime, my B prime is 1, 2, this is my B prime, and my C prime is -2, -1, and that's my C prime. All right, so let's look at practice problem number 3. Now this one I'm reflecting over the x-axis. So I have went and drawn a line where my x-axis is here in red. And we do have a rule for reflections over the x-axis. So if we look at that foldable we did before we did this sheet, we find that our rule for reflecting over the x-axis, AB goes to A negative B. So all we're going to do is change the sign of our y coordinate. Now remember that if my y coordinate is already negative, it's going to change to a positive. But if it's a positive, it'll change to a negative. Okay, so I'm going to keep the order, and the only thing that I'm doing is adding a negative to the y value. All right, so my 4 stays the same, and then I'm going to have a -5. Okay, my b stays the same. Now guys, my 0 will be negative. What's a -0? It's just 0. Okay, and then c, be careful here. So I have a 1. I already have a -4, so when I add a negative, it'll be -4, which is a +4. Okay, so this will be my A prime, my B prime, and my C prime. And now go ahead and plot triangle A prime, B prime, C prime. So after you plot your primes and connect the dots, you should get something that looks like this. And once again, the pre-image and the image should be congruent figures, just rotated a little differently. All right, so here's our practice problem number 4. Now, we're reflecting this over the line y equals -x. So I've drawn my y equals -x here in red. Okay, I want you to do this one on your own. Now, there is a rule for this. So what you need to do is go back to that foldable we just did, find your rule. After you find your rule, apply your rule to get the new coordinates. And then after you find the new coordinates, go ahead and plot it, connect the dots, and that should be it. So go ahead and do that now, and then we'll come back together and compare what we get. All right, so you should have gotten these coordinates. So A prime should be -2, -1, B prime should be 0, 2, and C prime should be 4, -1. And then when you plot them, you should get this up here, and it looks like this. Now, remember, be mindful, make sure these are 2 congruent figures, because if one isn't congruent to the other, then that's a good indication that you did something wrong along the way.